defies categorization.
Terry, let's take a pause and watch the balcony.
Yeah. That's what the world. That's cool.
Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum.
This is
Habemus papam. Eminentissimum, ac reverendissimum Dominum, Dominum Robertum Franciscum, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae, Cardinalem Prevost, qui sibi nomen imposuit Leonem decimum quartum.
And again, we have just heard that Robert Francis Prevost of the United States, 69 years old, born in Chicago, has been named the next pope. Terry?
There you have it. Hello, welcome to Neighborhood News. Today is the day of the new pope's announcement. And we have here with us Terry and Mark. Hey guys, this is Terry.
Welcome,
Terry from Cleveland.
Yep.
And he's here. He's a new recruit, new intern here in the studio. And fascinatingly enough, he's also a new recruit to the Catholic religion. So we'll have a great, sit a little closer to that mic there, or hold it in your hand if you want. So we're going to have a great conversation here for about an hour today with Terry and Mark covering the news. We may just talk about the Pope and all the fascinating things that have gone on today and all that there is to learn about Robert Prevost, the new Pope, Leo the 14th. For those, everybody's practicing their Roman numerals on a day like today. My wife was like 16. I was like, no, honey, when the lower number comes before the bigger number, you use subtraction. And so everybody's always, practicing. Yeah, that's how we, but welcome everyone, Neighborhood News. So you may want to just hold the mic, I don't know, or just scooch closer to it. It's all work in progress. You'll have to watch the show again later and just see how it goes.
Left the arm and moved the arm.
It's okay.
Like
but yeah, this is Terry's first performance, first appearance. They're not really performances. We're just an old-fashioned research community here. A lot of folks, obviously know each other through the George Webb research community. Terry has recently been introduced to George, and not personally introduced, but I've introduced him to the Twitter and all the other things. So he's getting onboarded. So hopefully folks are excited to see a new member of the research community here at Neighborhood News. And hopefully we can treat him good and make him feel warm and welcome. Hopefully we'll be seeing more of them. But so tell us, guys, Mark, what do you know about the Pope, or what can you tell us? What are some of your insights? And I'll start pulling up graphics.
Well, as far as he's an American, I guess he's originally from Chicago. We've never really had an American serve as a pope. We had the South American here, this Bergoglio, and we had a Polish pope in John Paul. Then probably before that, but for like 500 years, they were always like Italian. So this is, I would see probably more of the Vatican II processes continuing. I don't necessarily know that this at this point would be completely positive for what you might call the Latin Mass Orthodox Roman Catholics, who want to maintain the traditions and the faith of the church and not, homogenize it with the other religions. Like, that came out of like this Vatican II.
what Mark is saying with Vatican II. I'll read it here. Second Vatican Council, the Second Ecumenical Council of Vatican, commonly known as the Second Vatican Council or Vatican II, was the 21st and most recent ecumenical council of the Catholic Church. The council met in St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City for 4 periods or sessions, each lasting between 8 and 12 weeks in the autumn of each of the 4 years, 1962 to 1965. Although it had been anticipated initially that the work of the council would have been complete after 3 sessions. And I'll leave it right there, but that's Vatican II. So it really wasn't Vatican II, it was Vatican 21, which kind of makes more sense, you know. I mean, doing it about every 100 years or less than 100 years since Jesus seems maybe a little more appropriate. That they
I mean, there were ecumenical councils, you know, back in the third, like the contents of the Bible was determined through an ecumenical council.
Sure.
But you know, those go back a long way. But this is like maybe within the current age. Where they came up with it, I was very young, but I do remember they called it Vatican II, and suddenly Roman Catholics could eat fish on Friday.
That was the big change, huh?
That's a whole thing. I mean, I experience this. Yeah.
Well, what do you think, Terry? Terry was here watching InfoWars with us a little while ago, and they were ragging a little bit, or a lot of bit. What do you think? I mean, there's a little bit of raggage on the Pope, on the new selection there, and I can say very much so. He is not a MAGA Catholic. There's this new term they've come up with. You know, Steve Bannon. You know who Steve Bannon is? Familiar with Bannon? Mark likes Bannon. He watches Bannon here every morning. For those who want to stop in and ever see Bannon, Mark's always watching Bannon 10 to 12 in the morning. But he's a big MAGA Catholic, and there are quite a few of these MAGA Catholics. You know, very
traditional.
Yeah, I mean they got their things about them, certainly. But we do not think, even though this was an American selection, we do not necessarily think this was a MAGA Catholic, because he's more, from what everybody's anticipating or saying, he's more woke, I guess, more, you know,
sure.
into all that. So I don't know. What are your initial reactions as a Catholic?
Well,
what do you think?
I was baptized Catholic, and I recently moved back from Texas about a year and a half ago, and I'm now going through the process of becoming a Catholic. And it's interesting because you mentioned the word tradition, and I guess if you're going to follow the whole thing with LGBTQ and tradition, I'm not sure that mates up very well to the traditional Catholic Church, but
there's certainly some would say one way, some would say the other, I suppose.
Yes, and
that's the debate. Huh?
I've already experienced a little bit of backlash from a few people about deciding to join the Catholic Church and become a Catholic. And I think I just see it from the perspective of, I just want to lead a better life. I want to help. I want to kind of celebrate my connection to God. And I've received some people saying things like, why do you want to be a Catholic? I think it's just because it makes me feel good. And I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Mark, as far as, receiving backlash for choosing a faith, a church?
Yeah, but
Mark is not a Catholic,
Yeah,
just so the audience is clear.
I know.
But very Christian, very
very
knowledgeable Christian.
I would
Yes,
just
for
say
sure.
that I think that's just the human nature, the sin nature, because it would be the same thing as like, well, I want to be a ditch digger. Well, why would you want to be that? And just it's always like that. Just because you want to do it, you're going to get that opposite focus on it. I would hope that there is anything negative in that. People trying to belittle you or discourage you from pursuing your faith. I just say, if that's the way you were born, that's the team you were put on.
Yes,
so I guess
we
that's
talked about that earlier.
that's it, and that's where I think it kind of goes. And you have to sort it out in your life. But if you were born in the Roman place, and that's your that's the the focal point of your spiritual life, and you develop it from there.
It's a journey, and I can look back at all the life choices that I've made, and I accept them all. I'm accountable for them all, which accountability I think is a huge word to use these days, and I think a lot of people don't hold themselves accountable. And I know that with my faith, it's been a learning experience, and I've not always done the right thing. I think there's a lot of listeners out there that can relate to, oh man, I fucked that up, And I think now I realize that if I would have fucked it up with God, no matter what avenue I took, Lutheran, which is, Mom would take us to Lutheran church every weekend, and we would go to Catholic church mass on Christmas and all the big ones. And there was sort of a push and a pull with that whole thing. And
oh, we got the ringers.
bad ringers, bad. Cardinal sin. So
Live show ringers.
I
That's right.
think that I don't even know where it is.
That's all right. We'll find it. I'm going to bring up an image of Roman Catholicism versus Lutheranism, or just compared to Lutheranism, you might say.
That was Sirius XM. That's who
Yeah,
interrupted our program.
but
77 million Lutherans worldwide compared to 1.3 billion Catholics. So
Yeah.
it's like, whoa,
It's-
Catholicism's more. That's almost like 20 times what the Lutherans are. I didn't realize there was that much of a disparity in it. But okay.
Well, because the Lutherans are mostly German.
Okay.
And then and then the church, the Protestant churches, kind of fragmented, and you end up with the Calvinists and the Methodists and the Baptists and so they're different denominations of, but Catholic is universal too. Okay, and you have the Eastern Orthodox churches, which are also Catholic. They're not the Roman Catholic. So, and you count that number in too.
Well, the thing is in Texas, I belong to Church of Christ, non-denominational. So I have Lutheran. I have 10 years of being in that church, and now I'm going Catholic. And I think for me, the message that I gather from it is I put my faith in God. And I think that one of the big things that they said in the Church of Christ is they have a problem with the Catholic Church because they don't necessarily follow the Bible. There's different interpretations of it, and I think a lot of people have problems with that. And going from Lutheran and those, I've experienced 3 different avenues, but for me, the message has always been the same. It's about God, and just for me being a good person. And I know all that stuff is mumbled jumbled in the nightmares. We all know about what transpired in the Catholic Church, which brought it to his knees, and now you have this new Pope. He's conservative, and the old.
I don't think he's conservative, is he? This new guy?
Conservative mentality, correct? Am I wrong with that?
I thought he
Just
was
briefly read something like that.
Well, they come up that he was a registered Republican and he voted in Republican
Well.
primaries. But that's that could be a rhino too.
America's Pope, right?
But
I guess the jury's still out. I had
We
kind of
have to
gathered
find-
from
we
the
have to
initial
find out, yes.
initial reporting that he was more liberal. And I mean, there's so much to it. He's Peruvian now, even though he's American. He's actually a Peruvian citizen. He emigrated out of the United States and immigrated into Peru. And I don't know, just the whole Chicago thing. I've always got my antenna out for the Baha'i, which I don't know, you probably are not familiar with the Baha'i. The fourth Abrahamic religion is the Baha'i, and they're all over, man. They are trying to prove that their religion is part of all the other religions, and they are very much in a lot of ways on a trajectory of the one world religion, you might
Right,
say. So
yeah.
whenever I see people from Chicago, particularly because the North American home base of the Baha'i religion is in Deerfield Heights outside of Chicago, and there's all sorts of interesting stuff there. But I don't know. I mean, that's me just kind of grasping for geographical significance there, and whatever. So I mean, I'm sure there's pros and cons in all aspects of this selection, no doubt. And I don't want to be too critical or conspiratorial, especially since you are supposed to be very excited, and it seemed like everybody in the crowd was hooting and hollering and cheering, and this is supposed to be a celebratory day for Catholics. So You were like Infowars is raining on my parade. You were like supposed to be a celebratory day, and here they are.
Well, I think what what I'm gathering from the reporting that I'm seeing is that the selection of this pope is going to just pretty much continue the trajectory that the church has been on under Francis papacy, but we'll have to see.
Mass has not changed at all, by the way.
Mhm.
So,
What do you mean mass has not changed?
well, I mean, it just when you go in through those doors, it's the same thing, and it doesn't seem like people. I mean, I since he's been poped or whatever, I haven't heard many people talking about it at the church, and I think we're all just there for the same reason, just to be faithful and spread the word of God. And I know all the other garbage gets mixed in with it, and I hate seeing that, to be honest
Mhm.
with you. I just wish people could come together and work for the betterment of all. And I think we're seeing the news and everybody take over and put their own spins on it. And I guess as a Catholic, that's something I'm going to have to educate myself on and and pick and choose.
The fact that they did they did select him in a pretty quick,
Yes.
108, I guess, of the 133 cardinals that participated in this conclave were appointed by Pope Francis.
Yes.
So it's pretty much, I think, it set the direction of the church, at least in the United States, to continue on its more, we'll say, revisionist rather than traditional Catholic. I certainly hope that's the only thing I really hope that from out of this new papacy is that there's a new appreciation of traditional Catholicism, the Latin Mass, and the teachings, because if you're going to be Roman Catholic, be Roman Catholic. Don't, and if you're going to be the Lutheran, be a Lutheran, but be true to what your faith, what
Yes.
it is, and if there's things in there that are like the leaven or not, that's what you have to sort out, in your own life,
Well, they say in the church it's a personal relationship, so I guess that kind of defines a lot of aspects of what truly goes on, with the news and with people's opinions and whatnot. But it's a personal relationship with God, and I think when you have that personal relationship, a lot of that other stuff can just not disappear, but fall off a little bit to where your focus is primarily on that. And I find that when we introduce a lot of garbage into our lives, we tend to, live a not so peaceful life.
We're easily distracted, though.
Yes.
Those are the two most famous seagulls in world history, right there. See that?
Let me see.
Yeah, that's everybody cheering, but that's the white smoke coming out.
There it is.
Yeah. That's the fascinating.
Look at all those people.
Mhm.
Wow. That's a lot of people.
Maybe you'll get a chance to go there one day, huh? Is a bucket list item?
My grandmother went there, and I actually have a crucifix from her that glows in the dark, and it's made of plastic, and it's still around on my lampshade.
Well, so that's fascinating, interesting stuff. I want to, last, breach of this topic, or I guess we could keep going on this topic, but as an Ohio resident who I'd say you're somewhere between center right and far right. You might be far right. I don't know if you're okay with that, but I mean, if we were to put you on the board here, you might actually be.
I'm already being shoved in a corner.
No, I don't know. I mean, it's all good. I mean, I think
he's being put in the right-hand corner.
most of this audience here certainly would be center right to far right, but I mean all over the spectrum per se. But it's all good. But you are a Ohio resident, or Catholic, going to Catholic church, all that stuff, and you're inspired by JD Vance. You're a JD Vance fan, or you're into JD.
I like JD Vance. I've had the opportunity to watch him and listen to a few things, and I think
you voted for him as well.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
I cast my vote, and I
Oh, I was thinking actually for Senate,
well,
but it was, that
I think
been a few
as
years ago.
being vice president and voting for who I did, I think they were the better of the
Absolutely. yeah.
two, and whether that labels me or fills the world with screaming shouts of my name, and how could you do that? That's just, it's free will, right?
He's white
Was-
trash made good.
Yeah.
But so, what did you think of his visit to the Pope Francis the day before he died? You think
The whole. I was just reading something.
what a
about-
coincidence, or
Yeah, I was reading about the. He died the day after Easter, and I was talking to my mom about this, and she simply said, God kept him alive long enough to be around for Easter, and the next day he's gone, and here we are, and
or there's a psyop.
it very well could be, but I just
Mom probably doesn't want to hear that
No,
if
she
mom's
does-
watching right now.
No. Especially
Mom would get very angry.
especially when mom says your
Yeah.
dad would be so proud of you about becoming a Catholic.
Yeah, but
So it's just
or
it's
the
like-
Catholics are doing a whole Kabbalistic gematria, and they've been keeping him on ice until Easter.
See,
For
I don't know. He was moving around, wasn't he? I mean, it was a pretty loose, stiff,
Bernie-
frozen dude.
Bernie
but-
moved around pretty good at Weekend and Bernie's
Yeah.
too. I mean,
That's a great movie, by the way. Yes, it is. I love that movie.
but I don't know.
watch that.
I mean, it was pretty weird. I mean, just everything that we've had and seen gone on here, in the recent just life on Earth. Life in the in the society that we're in here in America. Having JD Vance visit the Pope, and then the Pope's dead the next day. And
Yeah.
there's so much, man. There's so much.
It's like
to it.
Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
Yeah.
Damn, that happened quick. I don't know. Timing, divine timing, right?
Mhm.
Did
Well,
God keep him here long enough to,
Mm.
to be here to see everybody on Easter, and then the very next day he's gone. I mean, was that his blessing?
Yeah.
I don't know.
no doubt we will all, move on. It'll just be another, thumbnail in history there, and we will.
We'll have to check with the gematria guy that does that Harvard to see if he did a show on it, because he always comes.
Oh,
up
I'm
with a
sure the
number.
gematria guy's done a
You
ton
know,
of
remember the
shows
murder
on it,
by
yeah.
the numbers stuff, but
Mhm.
he was old, but I mean, you just don't know. You're a corporation, you're corpse and corporation. So I guess it's really when the corporation ends, not so much when the corpse gives out, so with all of us, when they decide, when we're going to be dead is when they sign the paper.
Okay, yeah. That's your social security number having a bank account connected to it, or
Right,
anything.
kind of, yes,
All that I've heard of that. Jordan Maxwell kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is Jordan Maxwell still alive?
No, he passed away.
Okay.
I think in the COVID times,
Or was that
like in
recent?
2020 or something like
But yeah,
that.
he gave a lot of talks on that. That's fascinating stuff.
And then there's, and is Ripley's Believe It or Not, qualified in there so they don't take the channel down,
Well, so I will say here, we'll move on, or we'll rotate. Although I see all these other alternative media people are, and they're not even putting their money where their mouth is. So we've got Kalshi. We got $100 in our Kalshi portfolio, and I put it in there because I was gonna put a bet on the Dominican Republic, or not the Dominican Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo representative. He was like getting 2 cents to the dollar, was the guy I was going for. Because Cardinal Ambongo was his name. That's right. Because that is where Martin Bormann's son went after the war, and it was a point of the research that helped me realize how many of the Nazis went to Congo after the war, and how much they had set up there. And I was like, man, are they going to make the Congolese Pope, Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo, their first ever selection? He was my Kalshi bet. You know about Kalshi? Kalshi is this like betting on politics and economics and things going on in society, website. So we will be bringing that to the folks as things go on, as we do our shows with George or other things, and interesting.
Do you remember what
Bets
Congo
come
was
up.
called in the colonial days?
What is it? Zaire?
Well, no, it was the Belgian Congo.
Belgian Congo.
You
Okay.
know, but it
I
was
think it was also Zaire, wasn't it? At some point. Maybe I'm wrong with that.
that's in there too. But the I'm just
Yeah,
I
it was
just remember
Belgian. Yeah.
the Belgian
absolutely.
connection. You know, even today, you know, Luxembourg, that's maybe being run out of
Mhm.
Benelux.
But
The
to
whole-
highlight our next bet, our next interesting bet here on Kalshi is the Democratic presidential nomination. And Mark is really thinking that Buttigieg is the one we should go with here. You can bet 8 cents. You can bet 8 cents a contract on Buttigieg. 100 contracts. What's that? 100 contracts for $8. You cash out $100 if he's the nominee. So Mark's really got his money on Buttigieg. Oh, we don't have any money on
I was
Buttigieg.
going to say
You
you
do.
definitely have money on the one I'm looking at right now.
No,
This
we
is
could. We do
crazy.
not have money on that at the moment.
Are these odds in Vegas?
This
No,
is
no,
Kalshi.
for
No, that's what I'm
Kalshi.
saying. This is a website. Yeah. We put $100 in here, and we will be bringing this to the audience through the show. It'll be part of. We'll be as we continue to refine our shows here. This is kind of a free for all, getting Terry on the camera and on the mic and everything. But we will have a Kalshi segment where we go through and make a Kalshi bet.
Okay.
I suppose we could even do that right now. I don't know. My bet is still on Whitmer. I think Governor Whitmer is going to be their nominee. But there's a lot of people here, and we'll be making our wagers. Certainly,
Okay.
the bad thing is they're not going to cash us out. Look, Barack Obama's on there, John Stewart.
Okay.
They're not going to cash us out,
What
obviously.
about
until-
AOC?
she's
Berg?
way up at the top. It's AOC versus Gavin Newsom right now.
Yeah,
That's
'cause
really
she's figuring they're gonna she and Hogg are gonna clean out the Democratic Party and get rid of all the old.
They're
the-
going to
the
clean them
old-
out. Did you
have-
say
yeah.
clean them out?
Yeah, the autumn, because
Okay.
it's the clean. They're gonna the old left is gonna be cleaned out by the new left.
Yes,
They're
sir.
and AOC will come in and be the Nancy Pelosi. So y'all are gonna have to deal with her for the next 50 years. I'll be long in the grave, and you'll still be dealing with her long in the tooth, and coming in and all of these. And David Hogg, you'll have him for the next 50 years. So.
Man, I missed out on so much being a stay-at-home dad in Texas, which is his own country, for fuck's sakes. And now there's Kalshi, and I can bet on this stuff. Wow.
I know, yeah.
Such
And they are
change.
sponsoring
so much fun.
they're sponsoring podcasts and stuff.
know.
We got to get in connection with these guys because we're walking the walk and talking the talk here. But our audience member here says Cuomo wants it still, but Cuomo's not even in the betting here. So that's an interesting one. But yeah, I mean, a fascinating open contest here with the Democrats as always, because they suck so bad and have very few appealing candidates. So it's a free for all. But it'll be an interesting thing in a few years. And we will continue bringing Kalshi and our fun analysis to the audience as we do that. And we'll have a Kalshi segment, maybe even later in the show. I'll throw it on Buttigieg. But we had a couple other topics here today of interest. We were talking, we could go with Bill Gates, or we had the UK trade deal.
I just, because I just wonder, with the
Bill Gates?
Gematria thing, because that Chet Lemon died today from the 1984 Detroit Tigers.
Yes. I don't know if we've got any of our Detroit viewers in the audience. We do have a couple.
Go
the thing
Indians.
the thing that,
Slash
it was
Guardians.
the coincidence of the fact, there's the Chet Lemon of the Detroit Tigers that died today was born in 1955, which is the same year that the Pope that currently is selected was born. So I don't know if the subliminal message there is. I'm just kind of
though there are
interesting
killings.
kind
It
of-
does appear, or
but it's
murders
just
and
the
things that
fact
happen.
that,
on
that he
important
died
days.
and it was the same age kind of thing. It's just coincidence. No coincidence, but there are no conspiracies, right? And
Certainly for us Michiganders here at Neighborhood News Michigan, he would have been on the team with Alan Trammell, Lou Whitaker, all sorts of favorites. But rest in peace, Chet Lemon. Sad news there, but
70
fascinating.
years old, and
70.
Mhm.
And so the new Pope is 70.
or will be.
So
70.
we'll-
This-
so it'll
this is the
be-
year,
It might.
you're older than me, so that's why I notice those things, because
As you get older, you
I was
You
going
pay
to read.
attention,
I was
huh?
going to read this because you guys are asking me like how I feel about the new pope and
Okay.
and what my thoughts are, and I just pulled something up real quick, and it's just a average everyday person. And it says, I know Pope Leo to be a kind, open, humble, modest, decisive, hardworking, straightforward, trustworthy, and down-to-earth man. A brilliant choice. May God bless him. And that's the faith-driven part of it that's driven home right at the end. God bless him. And and with that being said, he's new. I don't know the history on him, but he's my Pope, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not confirmed Catholic yet, but I will be. But you know, I think I'm just going to offer support. And if people are just, I mean, humble, modest, decisive, hardworking, straightforward, that's what makes a Pope, right?
Mhm.
Someone who is ambassador to faith. And
Mhm.
once you cut all that other bullshit out of it, that fucks up the mix, I think that we're looking at maybe possibly someone who could do good for the church. I don't know. Is there any Pope that has just defunct it and screwed it up beyond all belief?
There have been some bad popes. I mean, it's like, through history. The only thing that I would say with this Pope, to me, what would be a sign of all of those things is like to restore Archbishop Vigano, who this previous Pope excommunicated because he was just too traditional, too Catholic, and he was calling out the deep state infiltration of the church. And he was like in the United States here, but
He was
anyhow,
like
but
excommunicated. What do you mean?
Yeah, he was excommunicated.
That's a real thing, huh? You can be excommunicated.
Yeah, they throw you out.
Wow.
So, and so,
That's him, huh?
but he, so to me, one of the things that he should do is to restore this man and bring him back. Because to me, if they had made him Pope, and I was like, and I know the Roman Church is, out to restore itself to an Orthodox, Roman Catholicism.
So that's Vigano. Okay, I've heard of Vigano. I didn't
Yeah.
really know what was behind the story there. Well, the other big story. Let's switch gears a little bit here. I think we've given some good feedback and analysis on our feelings about the Pope and everything. Any more
We
comments?
know I'm going to be a Catholic.
Yeah. We'll have more to come.
Yeah,
Terry's
there will be a lot more to come.
Terry's hopefully getting comfortable in the seat here. With the
Feels like
mic and
home.
all that.
Feels good.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know
So
what's going on with this piece of equipment, but I know it's a lot of buttons and I want to push them.
no. Well, here's it. Well,
We
I'll
need to
start
get you a
spinning
busy
dials.
We'll-
I don't give a shit.
Need a busy box.
I know. I'm a fidgeter, ADHD, like out of control. So I really want to do it, but I know that I'm going to get carried away, and it's
Here's
probably
some
going to
steel
go
balls
south.
to roll.
I know.
one step at a
I
time.
know,
One
yeah.
step at a time.
We'll talk
Success
about
by
that.
the inch is a cinch, right?
Sure.
So the other big news today in the news is that United States, now like the whole economy is Trump's economy because he's grabbed that bull by the horns, you might
Mhm.
say, and shoved his thumb up. It's, he's really grabbing the economy. That's for sure here, right? So I know, right? So,
Sorry.
no, that's good. The UK and US signing a trade deal, which right when I saw that at first, I was like, what's that? No, neither country makes anything. Like, so are we just, a currency deal, trading currencies back and forth. Like,
I think we got
that's me
automobiles.
being a negative
I can-
Nancy on it, I guess, because I'm sure there are some great aspects of the trade deal, but it's just like, man, like this is, I don't know. I mean, UK, what do they make in the United Kingdom that we really are importing? And what are we making here in the United States? I would imagine there are probably some high-end products we're making in the United States that we are shipping to the United.
The agricultural products, okay,
Agriculture, sure, fair
and not
enough.
to be having those blocked because of the the less than healthy, alleged condition of the foods and that or whatever. But yeah, will help.
It basically says under the deal, the United Kingdom will reduce non-tariff barriers to U.S. products, including beef, ethanol, fuel, machinery, and chemicals.
And
Just
they-
pull that up like that.
They
And they did do a
right.
carve out for Rolls Royce
Yeah.
since it was such a special vehicle that they wouldn't. The Rolls Royce wasn't included in the deal they made with for automobiles.
But it's basically the UK capitulating. This was a huge
Yes.
UK capitulation. America didn't have to do anything but just sit there and, so that's probably why Trump was touting it so big, because it is probably a very
It's a
clear victory.
It's a $5 billion opportunity. for
I mean,
exports.
$5 billion
I mean,
$5 billion will run the government for about 12 hours.
Well, they'll be
It's just so whatever. I mean, but that's it. I mean, sure, it's a
so
win.
they could be moving. This could be moving, the United Kingdom into the North American economic sphere, and maybe moving it out of the Eurozone, but away from that.
For the UK, you're saying?
Yeah,
Because they never really got Brexit.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
kind
I
of be
hear
a
you.
Brexit.
You just mentioned the automobile industry, right?
Yeah.
This says the U.S. UK trade deal will cut tariffs on British automobiles. This is crazy. 27.5% to 10% for 100,000 vehicles every year. That's
But they did a carve out for Rolls Royce because of its unique specialty there. So
yeah.
they could.
Those are all high end automobiles.
Mhm.
Well, what do you think? Is this a sign of more to come? Is this just a quick easy victory lap for Trump?
I think they're going to.
Well,
they're
it'd
gonna
be-
keep
Is this
coming.
just-
It's going to keep coming.
Well, and this is like we've got to look at with this Carney in Canada, okay? Because you're either going to get in like in Trump's United States economic zone, or you're going to have to deal with the Chinese, the communist Chinese, in their economic sphere. Is that the Canada? Are you gonna ally with China because you don't want to deal with the United States? Just a rhetorical question, but so the more that Trump lines up these deals with us, it's also kind of moving against the Chinese because they've always been in here trying to get where they're going to be first in line because they were most favored nation and all that for a while.
Mhm. Well, here I'll bring up a few more graphics here on this topic. Were there any other issues? Anything else you guys wanted to bring up here today? Anything of interest for our news roundup? We can do this a couple times a week. Maybe, I don't know.
I noticed.
We'll get this regularly scheduled, but is there any other?
Well, I noticed that Charles there talked about the 2020 back quarters, and we were showing it to Terry just a little while ago.
What that those existed?
Yeah, and then because that was something else that Alex had on today we should be talking about, and then the Bill Gates and the these COVID the reveals here of how they really were telling you all along how this was all depopulation and stuff. And,
The numbers. I mean, I have a personal experience with the whole COVID thing too. My father just passed away the end of 2023, and both mom and dad were really
Took the vax.
they didn't just take the vax. It was every fucking booster upon booster.
Oh, no.
Dude, it was ridiculous. And
now your father's gone.
my father's gone. And amazingly enough, kind of descriptive, but a lot of breathing issues were brought on by COVID. And older people. And my dad smoked, but I mean, he could keep his breath. He could play golf, and then he's getting boosted out the ass. And I remember mom came running into the bedroom, my bedroom, the spare bedroom, and she was just all over the place. And I ran in, and when you see that shit firsthand, someone starving for oxygen. And they got a tube, up their nose, and they're getting oxygen, and watching him rip that off. And we'll go with the whole God thing too. My dad just laying there starving, and I'm trying to talk him through it. And your dad's a hero in most cases your whole life. He's the strong one. He's the one that held the family together, worked his ass off. And all of a sudden you see your father struggling and starving, and his life leaving him. And it pisses me off that so many people went out and got stuck. I got stuck one time, and I refused to get anything after that. And
Stuck meaning jabbed.
pricked,
Jabbed,
yeah,
the
jacked
jab.
with something that was just forced into our bodies and
Experimental.
experimental, yeah,
Experimental.
nonetheless experimental. And do you know my mom was a big proponent of getting the boosters after my father died?
Oh man,
I
really?
stayed with
Yeah,
I'm with
whatever,
my
yeah.
mom now, and she has breathing issues too. And you start putting this shit together, and you see what happened. And I'm no expert. I'm not a chemist. I'm not into making medicines. I'm not in pharmaceuticals. I don't know how the fuck what they put in them. I have no idea. I know some of the shit works and some of it doesn't. But as far as getting stuck with this vaccine, I was talking to Mark earlier about the whole polio vaccine, and that had time. It
Yeah,
got
there's
tested.
a lot with that too,
There's a
honestly.
lot that went into that, and it helped.
Mhm.
It got
Yeah,
rid of
yeah.
it. And what's crazy about it is watching them develop the polio vaccine, and then watching how quick this vaccine for COVID popped. I had COVID when it first came out.
Mhm.
I know what it fucking feels like.
Yeah.
We have an immune system that's designed to fix it, you know.
Mhm.
And I want, you can't get fixed by getting stuck with a needle of something that has not been tried, true, and tested. And we're unfortunately going to lose people. I lost my father. It was fucking devastating. And everything that they said, and watching people pass away is what my dad passed away of. How do those numbers lie? You know, how my dad's gone.
Yeah.
And it's because of those shots, and I truly believe that. And to be in the mix and be present with that happening, and looking at all the information that's out there and all the people who have passed away, you're fucking right. It was population control, and it's unfortunate, but
Well, it was something. It would definitely.
it was definitely designed maybe to do some of that, but that's where you get
The
into
term that we use, the term George Webb uses very often, you know, like as an official term, almost is live exercise.
There you go.
That
That's
like
even better.
it
Thank
was
you for that.
somebody intentionally planned
Mhm.
and initiated and ushered out
Yes.
this fake virus.
Event
you know.
201. Remember that we?
Well, there were a lot of. I mean, it's
you know,
turning
like
out.
that.
You know, Event 201 was the one that everybody knows about, but RFK. It was even RFK who, you know, there's been a lot of mixed RFK reactions today. Well, he announced a new Surgeon General. I don't know if you caught that, but that's been big drama on Twitter and everything today. But RFK was saying he found over 20 different simulations, exercises, roundtable simulations, Crimson Contagion, Event 201. Mark Kulak talks about one that was in Hong Kong a year before Event 201. I can't remember the name of that one, but there was a number of different, you know, simulations as they planned for this for decades, or, you know, years at least, moving towards the big event of unleashing the fake virus and killing spree upon the nation, upon the world.
Compromised with
Excuse
people
me.
who have compromised immune systems.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's where it was at, right? I mean,
So it
I
seems.
had COVID and I'm still alive.
Well, I think if they got you in the hospital and they put you on oxygen, you know, because,
and the remdesivir.
well,
You know, that was the remdesivir that they would give you was the kidney failure and the lungs collapse. You know, like if 5 days of remdesivir or whatever, and 7 days you're dead. You know, from remdesivir.
they had a hair on fire plan for how to kill. You know, and
for sure.
you know, remdesivir's in there, giving people oxygen, you know, because you know, they put the little hose on your nose and they give you oxygen. They say it's helping, but if they push that too hard, it can scar. I mean, they've known since the 80s that that's like the number one cause of hospital injury, iatrogenic injury, is overuse of oxygen. And that was the first thing they were doing to people, was putting them right on oxygen. And then, you know, yeah, your lungs are all impacted because you've been on this high flow oxygen for hours, first thing, and the ventilators and all the other stuff. We don't need to go back down the whole road. I suppose we will. Certainly we will. Don't let me tell you, this research community is thick in the COVID live exercise
also.
and everything that went on. But certainly great to hear your firsthand testimony. Thanks for giving it. I mean, that was
It's
definitely,
a
you know,
tough one to share, but I mean, the truth was right there in front of me.
yeah.
It's sad to say, but I think a lot of people left this world that might not have had to leave, you know, so soon. So
Yeah.
it's time you'll never get back, and unfortunately, it's not proven.
But they grew up with Walter Cronkite, kind of, you know, and that you could, you know, and the most trusted man in America, kind of thing, and you know, and So they trusted the media, and what they were being told on television and, reading in the media and all those old sources that boomers would go to, and they just, they just couldn't believe they were being lied to, and, they were compliant and they ended up, in a bad situation.
This is Walter Cronkite here. Huh?
And that's the way the cookie crumbles. They used to say that.
That's the way it was.
That's the way it
Seven,
was.
Yeah.
Like that Walter Cronkite. Man, I was just watching some stuff on the Vietnam War and listening to him speak, and he was an amazing man. Amazing.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Amazing.
Back when
he
the
was a
news
legend
was
his
news.
time, but he was, why he always trusted CBS News, because he was, their anchor. And then Dan Rather took it over when he retired, but now, he's from the Edward R. Murrow School of Journalism, and Fred Friendly, and they were all gone. And as, time went on, they just became corrupted. And unreliable.
Well, we're the Walter Cronkites now, guys. So get.
I will happily wear that hat. If there's such a hat, I'm putting it on.
Right.
That was amazing. And
Well, I think so. We covered a couple news stories. I think let's wind it down here. We don't need to. Is there any other news stories? Any other topics you guys want to address? Any other?
I'm in Michigan, and go Cavs.
Yeah, there you go. Huh?
Yeah.
Cavs are having a rough series. I don't know.
Dude, this one they are.
Down 0-2. They lost the first 2 games at home. The Cavaliers did.
When I left for Texas, I gave up on all Cleveland sports, and then Houston. What a fucking debacle there when I moved. And it's crazy to say, since I've been back, I actually watched maybe 2 or 3 Browns games because my sister is like the most dedicated fucking fan. I mean, it's unbelievable. She has a floating Browns helmet. Since when did they fucking float? I mean, it's amazing. It's a beautiful art piece, but I think now I'm starting to enjoy the Cleveland drive again, because the Cavs are playing very well when they play together. It's a team. It's not just one person, So
well,
it's
we've got a lot.
enjoyable.
Our research community.
I remember
has,
the Cavs when they were playing in the Ridgefield Coliseum,
Yeah,
and they had
I remember that
mortgaged.
too.
They had mortgaged their draft picks for like 6 or 7 years
It
into
was
the
just-
future, and they were just
It was a
they were
shit
just
show.
hapless.
It was a shit show. There's still shit shows going on within the team network going on in Cleveland.
So yeah, it's a fucking wreck. It's what it is. They can't even figure out where they want to play football.
So we'll do a couple of comments here. We've got the great Charles. Thanks for being here, Charles. Renamed Lake Ontario to Lake Ohio,
Oh,
a la the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico. I guess that got
Wow.
officially voted as a thing today. Is that correct? Mark, did you catch that?
I didn't know if it was official.
I think it's
thought it already had
official.
happened.
I thought
Okay.
it was official, folks.
Well, maybe it is, but
Well,
as
the
soon
only
as
thing
I
I-
heard it, it was official.
do we
Well,
want?
it was illegal. It was illegal to drill for oil in the Gulf of Mexico, but so if you call it the Gulf of America, you kind of get around the law. It's interesting, creative way to sidestep an issue.
Mhm, mhm. So a couple here. Let's see. Another Charles, you're humble, modest, straightforward. Yep, the Pope, right? Jordan Maxwell.
at
So we will
this.
be. So I think what we're gonna do here, we're gonna wind it down, and then later tonight, Terry's gonna be here a couple days, getting a feel for the place and the
Getting
research and
situated.
everything.
Yes.
And so I think we're gonna come back at you tonight with a book reading. We Mark and I used to do this years ago, and we've talked a lot about getting back on track with reading books. And I've got a book right there, actually.
You need to read the
There's-
Bible, my friend. Read
We
the
can do
Bible.
Bible, too. Hold
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. I'm going to be doing a lot of that soon. Yeah, you have to.
We could have a Bible show.
You never know.
We used to have a Bible show,
Spread
but
the
I
word,
think
baby. Spread the
tonight,
word.
I think for tonight, we are going to start with this book, Welcome to Terraland by Daniel Hopsiker. For folks in the research community, many, if not all of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with Daniel Hopsiker. May he rest in peace. He died last year. So certainly this is something we wanted to do, is memorialize him and dive into his awesome research. And 9/11 is hot right now. You know, that's one of the things
reveals
that's
come through. Yeah.
yeah, the reveals or the rishmeals. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of misinformation and diversion is coming at us, and I guess that's a big part of why we want to get this on the record and read it and have it available for just live reading, so that we can do our best to combat the narrative spinning.
And get to these people while they're still alive. You know.
Yeah, I know. Ain't that
Do you all remember where you were during 9/11?
everybody does, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
Where were you?
it's-
Where were you? I was in college. My roommate woke me up. It was my freshman year of college, and I was in bed, and my roommate shook the bed, and he's like, bro, you got to get up. They got us. And I woke up, and I was in the dorm. And where were you? Where's your story?
I was off of East 55th and St. Clair. Look
Is
up
that-
the Huff Avenue riots back in the day. It's on the east side of Cleveland, and I was working at an aluminum remanufacturing plant, and oh my god, it was insane. I mean, I remember leaving work and my boss, Jesus, you can't leave now. What do you mean? This shit's going down, dude. So I just remember driving down 71 heading home, and it
I
was
didn't know
a
about this.
fucking ghost town. And I remember there's one part of the highway that they have an American flag, and I remember it was a breezy day, and that one flag was just blowing in the wind, and I mean it was very powerful when I think about that moment. And
This is urban renewal in another
Amazing.
way. Yeah, because
I didn't know about this. The Huff riots, huh? This is Cleveland.
yeah,
that's-
Cleveland Huff riots. That's I
This
worked
was-
right downtown from there.
Just so you know, our research community is real thick with Cleveland. We'll have to
Yes.
introduce you to Harry the
course.
Greek over there.
Yes.
George was actually born in Cleveland. Of course,
Really?
Mark's, Ohio guy through and through. He's got a lot of Cleveland. So we may even have to get a Cleveland charrette on the calendar here
Might have to.
with all the Cleveland stuff going on. But maybe if the Cavs make it through to the next round, we'll have
They're
to
going
do
to
a
make
charrette.
it through.
But here, the Huff riots. Interesting
Yeah.
stuff. What were you going to say, Mark? Sorry. Was
a lot of this, this was like the upsetting of when you're putting the highways through, displacing one neighborhood, and then you move that neighborhood into the next neighborhood that you need to take out for your highway construction. And it's cheaper to have riots to burn the buildings down, than it is to pay to have them torn down. And, and I'm thinking a lot of even, I think I mentioned it to you, like with like the burning couch in East Lansing, or even George Floyd. These are always like these economic zones, and you burn it down, so you don't have to tear it down.
I mean, I think a lot of people are fearful that that's going to be our destiny this summer.
It might
Yes.
even put
You
a new
know,
TV in your
yes.
living room, by the way.
Yeah.
It's the latest and greatest. So Dad, thank you.
Here's another comment from Deborah. Hello, Deborah. Chicagoan Robert Francis Prevost was the decision was announced after 133 cardinals deliberated for 2 days while partaking in the papal conclave, a centuries-long tradition to elect the next pope. Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Certainly, I apologize if I was overly critical. Terry's got the right approach. Just
I
support until you can't support anymore.
pretty much.
Yeah. I had just legalized marijuana 1997.
What can you do
2001.
about it? It's just, it is what it is, and
You can't
it's
do
like,
anything about it.
it's
That's
like,
the thing. I
you
just
know,
have to roll with the punches,
Mhm.
and hopefully I can take the left hook.
WKRP Cincinnati, you know what that is?
That's a great show, by the way.
yeah.
That's a
folks have
TV
said-
show back in the day.
In the olden days, Neighborhood News 1.0 was likened to a WKRP Cincinnati type
well, Andy
environment.
looked
And actually,
like
folks,
the
so
one
folk-
character on there.
What were the last lines in the song that they played? WKRP in Cincinnati. Remember that? That's the way it went down. I know
We'll have
that.
to play that
Me
here, but-
TV, baby. Me TV.
So we've got the audience here saying hello, Andy, Mark, and Aaron. This is actually not Andy. This is Terry.
I am Terry.
He looks
I,
a little like Andy.
I do look like
Um,
Andy. I
we'll
have a
have
lot
to-
of doppelgangers out there, apparently.
You and Andy both
Yeah.
had hair. Mark and
Yeah,
I
there.
are
Yeah.
are hair challenged, you might say, which accounts for the hats. But you,
I actually
have
cut the
a-
hair off. My dad hated it, and it was.
I know you did have
it
super
was
long,
down to
like
here. I
like
grew it out twice.
hippie dude. Yeah.
Yeah, it got down to here, and
We'll do it again, and I'll borrow it.
Yeah.
I'll make a toupee.
I actually tied it. I actually tied it back so and creased it so he.
I thought I was gonna have to shave my ass.
yeah.
You shave me some
Yeah,
ears,
it's
so
like,
I got you.
what? No. Yeah. Nope.
But yeah,
John Wilkins is doing something tonight about prions. John runs a Zoom call. We'll actually maybe have to check in on that
Yeah, I
tonight.
missed it. He was on
Introduce
yesterday.
you.
He sent me a link, and it was too late before I saw it. But, John's got interesting stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to get
and
him over
interesting
here.
Characters.
He's
Yeah,
another
I know.
Clevelandite, another Clevelander there. So
Did
we'll
you
have
just
to
say
get him
Clevelandite?
Clevelander.
You know what they
Clevelander.
call people who
That's good stuff.
move from out of state to Texas? You know what I was called?
Yankee.
Yeah, carpetbagger.
They did call me a fucking Yankee way too much. I mean, there's a lot of fucking shit going on with that whole thing. Where are you from? Ohio, you fucking Yankee. But they called me a transplant. We're known as transplants. So
Yeah.
anybody
You're
funneling over from California, from Cleveland, Ohio, it's we are transplants, folks.
You know, when I moved to Texas in '81, and I got down there, you know, and because it was bad here, you know, it was like now. And anyhow, like Detroit had really, the auto industry had, like hammers and Los Angeles. A lot of Michiganders had moved to Texas. And so, you know, you mentioned you were from Michigan. You were like persona non grata in Texas. So, you know, and, you know, but, you know,
like that.
they asked me, you know, and I was from Ohio. And it was like, I know they had caught up with, you know, where Ohio was. Maybe it was like near Iowa or something. But, you know,
Did you say Iowa?
I didn't get the, you know, the hate that the Michiganders were getting at the time.
I'm just bringing up.
Then you go to the Rangers. You'd go to the Rangers game out in Arlington. You know, half of the fans that are at this baseball game are Tigers fans because you've got all of this dysphoria of Michiganders that have moved down to Texas.
Oh yeah, the Michiganders travel well for their teams, right? Yeah. But so I think we will leave it right there. We've got another show. We'll come back at you late tonight with about an hour of Welcome to Terraland by Daniel Hopsiker. So that'll be great if you want to join us. If you've got this book at home, or if you want to purchase it on your Kindle so that you can read along with us, we will be probably reading the first 2 or 3 chapters tonight. And then, you know, I don't know if Terry will be with us for all the readings, but Mark and I will continue reading that book, and we'll get a regularly scheduled book reading going. And then tomorrow at
We
noon,
got to get back to the Borman Brotherhood.
Yeah, there's a lot of good books.
We were doing that
yeah,
one.
yeah. There's a lot of books to read out here, right? We got a lot of
I
work
have a
to do.
lot
In
of
the
stuff to
Congo, I mean-
read. I can't wait to start reading.
A lot of books in this place here.
It's like college all over again.
But
Fucking fire out a book report for y'all.
in addition to Welcome from Terraland this evening, which we will begin tomorrow at noon, we will be live with George Webb. We missed yesterday. We had been going on Wednesdays with George, and we missed this week yesterday, so we are switching it to tomorrow. So tomorrow at noon, if Terry, you know, if you're feeling good, we'll probably put you right here. You get to know George virtually, and we'll all, you know, discuss things. But what I will do actually to help just continue with the familiarization process is I will play George's Twitter video that he did a couple hours ago on our way out here, and you can watch this. And the audience, of course, I'm sure everybody here knows George. He's been certainly a big help and an inspiration here with Neighborhood News. Couldn't have done it without him. We would not be here without the help and support from the big guy. So we are all part of the research community that he has fostered here, and certainly everyone's super pumped that Terry's here to help carry the water and get the truth out and do the research and all the great stuff. So we will leave it there. We'll see you guys tonight for our book reading, and tomorrow with George Webb.
Okay, hello everyone, George Webb. You can see the Rand Corporation behind me, and a lot of the things that came out of the Rand Corporation in the 50s and the Cold War and the 60s seem to have these roots that trace back to this guy named Otto Bolschwing, who was very close to Gavin Newsom's father, very close to John Paul Getty. The ties may have gone all the way back to 1933 with the thinking of the old Third Reich. And one of the plans that was written by Bolschwing was this plan of pacification. How do you get a whole bunch of students that are at the University of California who are protesting against the war? How do you stop them from protesting? How do you pacify them? Well, we have a plan right here written by Bolschwing that they're the ones, Rand, who wrote the plan. We have a plan right here that Bolschwing did this in Germany in 1933. It went all the way through 1945. It's right here, ready to go. Here's Newsom, William Newsom, who is a key advisor to Pat Brown, the governor of California, right in 1964, 65, 66. And then to Ronald Reagan, right after that, Ed Meese later on. So we're looking at those connections on how RAND Corporation seemed to be research and development, it stands for, not only process the Nazi secrets in aviation and space, but also in the area of surveillance. These cameras, these high definition surveillance cameras that the Gettys and William Newsom was involved in, along with Bolschwing, the TCI company, certainly play to that. The film processing of the cameras for NASA, very high resolution so that you could see cars from space. If you had taken down as an FBI agent a license plates, which they used to do at these various protests, then you could follow the cars, see where they go, see what other meetings they go to from space. You could follow it from space. Back in the 60s, back with Bolschwing. So we're following these things. It's in the Substack. Martin Bormann also was getting the capital along with Himmler. He had a plan to get the capital out of Germany, the capital flight plan, the flight capital is what they called it. A lot of those investments ended up with J. Paul Getty. And again, the key advisor to Gordon Getty and J. Paul Getty, the son of the billionaire, was by William Newsom. They not only the consigliere to Pat Brown, the governor, but also father to the current governor of California and father to the current leading presidential candidate for 2028. Important history to know. It's all there in the Substacks, all the research.